Hello.
Hello there.
Hello. Tom.
Wow, the whole band's there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks a lot, guys. I know I changed the time on you as well last minute. So thank you for being flexible with that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having
We
us.
got to wake up later, so it was nice. Thank you.
Works out perfect. You were kind of hoping I'd ask. Eh?
Yeah.
So let's start off, guys, with I have to say I'm confused about some of your names because I found some different sources. There was on Lonely Oak Radio, I think was one that had different names. And then I was looking through, there was actually a really nice article that I know you're aware of. It's Click, Roll, Boom, did an article on you guys, and it had different names. Has there been a lineup change?
Yeah, it's like one.
Oh, yeah.
There
Yes,
you go.
we
So,
changed bass player a bit ago, so
Yeah.
okay. So maybe if you don't mind, if you could just introduce yourselves and your name and what you do so that people watching then will know.
Yeah, so I'm Josh, the vocalist.
I'm Tom, I play bass.
I'm Ciaran, I'm the guitarist.
And I'm Jamie, the drummer.
Okay. I've been listening to you guys quite a bit. In fact, the first time you guys contacted me, I had received something from you guys. So this is for this podcast is season 3 of the podcast. And at that point, I was still in season 2, but I was going through my emails after you had contacted me again. I listened to your music and I was like, oh, okay. Yes, I would like to I would like to chat with these guys. And then when I look back at my records, because I just did like a find on the band name and I saw one from back in November, I was like, okay, all right. So I have more information than I thought.
Yeah, a lot's changed since then. So yeah, the information might not be the best, but it's still information.
All right. Well, let's well, misinformation maybe. Let's clarify then. So what has changed since November?
So we've obviously got this fine little fellow, and since then we've been working on our debut EP, which comes out October 17th. So since, I mean, we started writing that in maybe October.
Yeah, it was quite a while, yeah.
And then from February-ish, late January to now, we've been getting that finalized for release on 17th of October. So it's very different to how it was in November.
So how do you guys do that? I mean, I have tons of questions actually, but one of them would be like, how do you do that process in terms of the recording? Like, where do you guys record? Are you the producers or do you have somebody who works with you in the studio?
We recorded the stuff at Union Lipper, so we know 2 guys who helped us. So we got Zach and Tom who helped with all the stuff, and then we got Sam, our mate, who masters it as well. So we just did it all in Union stuff. So it's over about span of like a month or something like that.
Ish, yeah.
Yeah.
So they helped you to record it, and then are they doing all the mixing as well, or you just receive the recordings and you do that?
No, Zach did the mixing of the song, and then we passed it on to Sam to master it. So there's a whole process there.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because I was listening to you guys posted on, I think it was on Facebook, you had posted some clips of just some live stuff, and the energy is awesome, honestly. Like, you guys are, first of all, it's really energetic in terms of fitting the music, but then it's also fun. Like when there's that one video where your drum falls over to the side. And the way you guys filmed, like the way you had the camera there, I'm sure, you know. But then one of you went and just like nudge it over and it says thank you.
Gigging around Liverpool and in its surrounding areas, you get every technical failure you could possibly imagine. So it's good practice. We'll say that.
Yeah, I mean that's a great, honestly, it is a great observation about being a live band. I mean, I remember at least one time I'm in China. I don't know if I told you guys that I'm in Shenzhen, China. When I first arrived here, I was in a city called Qingdao. I was playing with a couple other guys, and we'd gotten out of the taxi, and like luckily very quickly realized we had left the snare drum in the taxi. And he's like driving away, no, you know. So it would have been a very quiet gig, you know. Yeah, so your live show has tons of energy, and like there were tons of moments where you guys were doing something. You start playing a solo, or you start hitting a vocal line, people start reacting, and it was awesome interaction. And then there's that like fifth member of the band who is the recording, like the recording team. You know, I know it's more than one person, but you have really a cool sound in your recordings as well. Because one of the things I love is like you give, for the type of music that you play, it's possible for people to go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're boom, we're gone, you know. But you guys really have a good sense of dynamic. You give the song a lot of air at moments, so that when you do kick in with something more powerful, it's a lot more impactful because people notice the change.
Will it show me some direction, or will I leave less behind? No more love, no more love. It's rolling at my brain, I never see another way. No more love,
We're all, I think it's fair to say we're all big fans of, well, you more than any of us, but we're all big like Nirvana and kind of like the 90s
Got a Nirvana
grunge
t-shirt
fans.
on.
Yeah.
I think I'm saying.
Always wearing one.
I think I've got one. And that kind of that kind of light and shade has taught us a lot in terms of writing and how to make a heavy bit heavier by using that color.
And the rhythms as well. I noticed you commenting on going into halftime. Does halftime make a song better? Always.
Yeah.
You know. How does that work with the process of writing? Like, sort of typically, what does it sort of look like when does one of you bring an idea to the band and you all develop it? Or has it been that sometimes a guy has said, listen, I wrote this song, could you guys just play your parts? Like, how has that looked up to this point?
It's kind of changed. I mean, from now, we're not really doing it yet, but recently it's changed. But for the most part, it's just been Ciaran or Tom kind of bringing in an idea that works on together. And then we'll do it in practice, so I'll just mumble some random words or something over it, which sounds a bit crap when you listen back. No, it's fine, it's fine. And then Jamie will just cut with a groove and stuff. It's kind of like we all do it together, but you know, we're gonna try doing it when I like bring a song in, because like over all the summer, because we're all away from each other, I was just writing in my room, being a bit of a loner. But like, yeah, I was alright. So yeah, crying. No, I'm joking. I wasn't crying. Like, yeah,
He was crying. He was crying.
Emotional songs, man.
He was sobbing.
You know, I was talking with someone recently, Mickey Maffey, that I was talking to, who's this fantastic guitarist, songwriter, singer, and I was saying to him that for me, I've found it really hard in my life to write happy songs, because it's kind of like if I'm at a party and I'm having a great time with people, I don't want to go, oh, okay, I'm gonna go lock myself in the room and write about how awesome this is. Like, you want to be in that moment, but when you're locked in your room and you're reflecting on things that have happened, maybe not in the best of moods, that's when for me I'll sit down and write stuff. So it's like, so actually, like you're saying that, but honestly, like for a lot of us, that's the moment that the most stuff comes out, you know.
I know for me and Josh at points, we've kind of used it as a cheap therapy to kind of just
we're unstable.
at points, yeah. And it's a lot healthier than doing other things, and it's nice to have that creative outlet to get some of that out at times.
Yeah.
You are like, it's actually becoming a thing. I might have to put it in the description of the podcast or something, because it's become a thing now that almost every time I chat with somebody about songwriting, the word therapy comes up at some point.
Yeah.
You know, I just like, I mean, and just in the sense that we all have our problems and our you know, the things that we said that we wish we hadn't said, or whatever that thing is that's bugging you at that moment, but writing it down, that chance to think about it, put it down into words, and then turn it into something awesome that people will later scream about, you know?
It doesn't surprise me actually, but it's interesting that number of people have said it.
I could be lying to you here, but I don't think I've ever brought it up myself. It just comes out in the conversations because, I mean, I would say the same for myself. A lot of songs that I've written were really helpful in me sort of processing something that happened.
Gotta find a way out. Oh dear, don't you worry. She lies to them, she lies to everyone. You say love is trust, while the devil lies. Was that another lie? In a messed up way, she twists your thoughts and made you feel another way. One life to change the truth and make it feel another way.
One of the things that I loved, actually, you guys are on Radio Wigwam. I spoke on Our Mind on Music with Jake Dollery, who is a DJ on Radio Wigwam. Do you guys know?
We don't know him personally, but I'm pretty sure he's played some of our stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't know that when I wrote back to you guys and we started contacting each other. But then I saw that, and actually I listened to a lot of the stuff that I'm going to reference here. I was listening to it on Radio Wigwam. So I thought that was kind of a cool connection, because Jake's a really nice, interesting guy, super songwriter, really creative guy. He does all the cover art for his own work.
It's 5 in the morning, her whole life on the backseat. Mist turns to rain, wipers glide with a heartbeat. Driving through the streets where she once played as a child, she turns on the radio, her mind drifts for a while. And the radio plays another breakup song, another reminder of where it all went wrong. And the radio
So I was listening to your songs, and on there, I think it is, on a couple of your profile type things, it talks about influences, previous bands. You just mentioned basically the grunge era in general,
Yeah.
but there's also Rage Against the Machine came up a couple times as an influence.
Yeah. Definitely that kind of approach to heaviness. I know me and Tom have talked about this before, that the kind of, because when you're listening to Rage that they mean what they're saying, and it feels very raw at times. That's the kind of stuff that I know me and Tom in particular like when we go for heaviness.
Okay. That basically just answered my next question, because I was thinking musically, I don't hear, like, you're not doing the Tom Morello pitch bending pedal thing, or you know what I mean? Like, you're not doing those types of tricks that he does where he pulls. Sorry? Have you?
Not on anything released yet.
Oh, okay. Well, spoiler alert. Because I mean, that was one of the things, like when I saw the influence of Rage, I thought a couple of things. First of all, that I thought Tom Morello's just, his style on the guitar, which, is unique, but it's become sort of a whole different sort of subgenre in a way, the way that he plays. And then the bass, you, Tom, play with a pick, don't you?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm sorry?
Everything's been released,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that we're having this conversation right now, and in a couple of months people are going to be going, dude, I don't think that guy listened to their music. So we're going to have to do another conversation at some point, because we have to do a follow-up, but yeah, I was thinking that too. Like with Rage, I always think about like the slap bass type thing, but you play the stuff that I've heard up to this point with a pick, so I was wondering what exactly you meant when you listed them as an influence. You've explained it now. And then Royal Blood.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar. I have to admit, I wasn't familiar with their music at all, and now they're on a couple of my playlists because it's like, it's great, So I listened to Shiner in the Dark. Do you know the song by them? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm probably being silly asking that. You're like, yeah, it's like their biggest hit or something. But I didn't know who they were, so I'm educating myself here, thanks to you guys. When I listened to Drowning, I heard their song and I heard the way that they use distortion on the guitars. I don't think those two songs sound the same. I don't think that at all. Like, none of your influences come out like we're trying to sound like these guys. It's just that great mix of good music that becomes better by mixing it together and taking your own sincere take on it. That's what I mean by this. But when I heard Drowning, I thought, oh, the guitar, wait a minute, those are like similar sounds. It was the first time that I heard something that I could almost like pick out and say, it was like, maybe that's where that influence came from. Was that a consideration? Are those things you think about?
I think for Drowning in particular, it was, I guess, that's as much nicked from Queens of the Stone Age, who also is a royal blood influence. And I guess that kind of common influence maybe influenced them as well. But for royal blood in particular, I think it's that.
It's a melody, surely, like not completely, but like that kind of like taking elements from like more poppy songs, and which are a bit more catchy. Because I like to think most of our songs we've released are kind of catchy, which is important to me, particularly when I'm writing the lyrics and the melodies and that. So I think that's the main thing we've got from Royal Blood and that kind of stuff, is just having that kind of easy to sing along aspect to the songs, but still sticking to what we want to sound like, if that makes sense.
That's a really interesting point, because it was one of the things that I thought, it doesn't sound at all like you're trying to be poppy, like, you know what I mean? But you definitely have some really catchy moments in there. I think it comes back, for me, it comes back to your sense of dynamic. You know, you guys seem to understand really well the ebb and flow of songs. So there were moments where like I could feel something was going to build, and then either you do or you don't. Like, it's really cool wondering, because there's no sort of formula to it. I think I wrote down in one of the songs where you have this, I'll see if I can find it. There's this like awesome build. It's like dun, dun, dun. You do this huge build, and then it does this like snap ending. It just kind of goes. Blah, blah, blah. I think you do triplets on the drums, blah, 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 and it's like. Oh. Time it says drum ending, awesome. So congratulations. I scribble this down as I'm listening, so build into a sudden snap ending. Yeah, I mean, in general, the drums I think are really interesting. There are a couple of moments where I hear you go into just like a kick snare, and when that happens, for example, there's like one song where the guitar is Last Dance. Last Dance, you're doing like this chromatic descending finger picking thing. And at that moment, very appropriately, I think the drums are pretty straightforward. It's not, you know, you're not doing a whole bunch of like triplety kind of fills and crashes and all this stuff. It's pretty straight, which I think is just really good balance, you know?
Something like this isn't enough. I'm rolling around in this infectious love.
I mean, when we wrote the song on stage, they often sort of start as a guitar demo and then come into existence in the room. We kind of plan out how the structures are going to work with each other, how the song is going to flow. And I think kind of during that time, it's just about like finding what's the appropriate level of, for lack of a better term, insanity to put in a song. You know, a lot of the time you just need to play what is gonna lift everything else up and just kind of hide in the back.
Sort of, but I mean, I really do think I was talking recently with a group called Seems Like Tuesday. They're in New Jersey, in the United States. Steve Tabilio is their drummer, and he's got a very, I think, advanced sense of how to play as a member of the band. And he said that, not that he didn't say I've got a really advanced sense. he was like, he said, I try to play as a member of the band. I'm one of the instruments in the song, so that I'm going along with that, and I'm supporting as much as possible. And I really felt like that's what was happening there. There are moments where you're the instrument that our ears are focused toward. And then that moment, like in Last Dance that I just mentioned, where you know, and I think it sounds like you guys talk and think about this together. So you know to lay back and let something else be the feature of the moment.
We kind of do talk about it and we don't. I think it's part of it is just natural instinct.
Yeah.
If there's obviously we've all got our opinions about how a section should feel, and if there's a difference of opinion, we'll talk about it. But if we're all on the same page, it's completely unsaid.
I know exactly what you mean when you say that. You talk about it, but if you overthink it, it'll become too watered down, and it'll lose the sincerity of the moment, you know.
Yeah.
The second thing being the crowd, because whether or not they realize it, they're telling you what works and what doesn't work as well. There was a part, Josh, when you sang, there was a little clip of a live thing where you had hit this like Chris Cornell type note way up there.
I do love Chris, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Man, I actually I jotted that down as well. I got to show you, like, this is my craziness right here.
Oh, wow.
It's more than I've written about. So
Well, because I was listening to a lot of stuff and I heard you didn't list Soundgarden as an influence, you know, or any of the other stuff Chris Cornell did. But honestly, I heard some of that in there. So well done. Holy cow.
I've listened to a lot of Soundgarden and that, like, yeah, a stupid amount. But yeah, it's good.
Oh.
It's good fun.
And Audioslave as well. I mean, it was a different style and everything, but it still had Chris Cornell, so it couldn't be bad, you know. Like,
We did a cover, right, of the Audioslave song.
Yeah, we did a cover of Coach Eyes at one of the gigs. Which, yeah.
That was not fun vocally. I was having a bit of a rough day. I still went it, but yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
That was a miserable gig.
That was a terrible gig.
Yeah, wasn't it?
That was my first gig with the band.
Yeah.
oh,
Everything that went wrong could have gone wrong.
It's your fault.
It was his fault.
I think that has to happen that way. That way, everything from that point onward is you know, onwards and upwards.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, there was a moment where you hit this note and the crowd just like spontaneously, not a person in the crowd. I mean, the crowd spontaneously just went, woo, you know, like those are the moments that, you know, as a band, you're like, oh, okay, check. We got to keep doing that thing because that worked.
Yeah, the crowd is the best and worst test for some of those things, because in the room, some things feel amazing. And then you get them in a crowd and it falls flat on its face, and it's the most embarrassing feeling ever, but it's handy.
It is, and you know, that's the next therapy song you'll write about. You'll write about that moment. I mean, I've been there, because I was like, oh, but you know, we're doing this thing where we do this amazing bass line and the guitar fits just so, and the drummer's doing 16th notes on the hi-hat, and like, for all the wrong reasons, we think that it feels awesome to play because it fits together just so, you know, and the audience is like, doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters really. If they don't think it fits, then, you know, we can do that in band practice because it's fun to do, but we probably shouldn't take it on the stage if, I don't know, you know, like I know there are people listening to that go, no, you should do it more, because then you're pushing the barriers, the Rick Rubin thing, you know. If everybody likes it, you're not pushing hard enough.
Yeah,
That's true.
very true.
Tossing their heads in a springly dance. Where do you run now? What you see is true destruction. You see the landscapes are changing as well. Is it true?
You guys have talked about the fact that one of you will bring in a song idea and then you sort of talk through it a bit. In terms of going into the studio, do you typically you'll play them live a couple times first before you try to take it into the studio, or is it you try to yeah for the same reason, I guess, so you get a feel for which one's worth recording?
I think the more we actually play the songs, we end up actually tweaking parts what need tweaking anyway without realizing it. Because we've had that, like the more we play a song, like someone will just change something. It just works, and it's normally the way it goes. Just mess around.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of the songs that's coming out on the EP in October, which was written when we first formed the band, which was like over a year before we recorded the EP. And we recorded a different version of that song, which we were going to release at the same kind of time as Rewrite Your Time and Changing World.
We're happy with it, are we?
We weren't happy with it. We ended up not putting it out, changed the lyrics.
This guy joined the band and changed the lyrics, man. I did
First
say
thing
to
he
him, I was like, I did say to him, I was like, right, these lyrics are a bit, it sounds like I just lobbed some words on the page, which I kind of did already, but and then he came and fixed it and wrote a really nice bridge.
So yeah, now that's actually going to come out in all its glory
Yeah.
in October. I think it's important a lot of the time for songs to just have that time to exist and live and breathe. And I feel like especially in that case, you find that you end up unlocking stuff, ideas in the song that you wouldn't have thought of originally.
Yeah.
And it just ties the whole thing together much nicer.
I'd laugh if it becomes the most hated track on the EP. That'd be quite funny now. Say all this, like everyone's like, it's terrible. That bridge is terrible.
Yeah,
I didn't write it.
it wasn't me. Yeah, no, I think that's true. I'm not sure how that works really with people who don't play live first. Like, you know, maybe people who just don't play live. They write songs, you know, and there are people out there that write them by themselves. They might work with a producer, and they create a lot of really great music. So I'd love to know how that works in terms of how do you know? Like, is it just you have a really great ear? And I don't know. I'm not sure how that works, but I hear what you're saying about letting the song have a moment to exist, is what you said. You know,
I think there are some songs that can cross the barrier of both live and studio, but then there are others, particularly on the studio end, where they're only meant to exist in the studio recording and the released version. There's something about them that just doesn't work live, even though people love the studio version. And
It's weird, isn't it?
yeah, and I think for us, even though the songs live are basically the same as the studio versions, because we've not got the production side of things live in terms of things that we'd use to thicken out the songs in the studio, it's a different version of the songs live, and that's something that people might prefer, something that people might prefer the studio one, but they're two very different worlds at times.
yeah, which I think, you know, if your reasons for doing that are because the response that you had listening to yourselves playing and the response that the audience had told you to do that, then that's exactly what it should be. And, you know, I don't know you guys, but for me, I found a lot of live recordings, like recordings that people put out their concerts, you know. I don't love them, you know. I think it's great for documenting what happened in that room that night, but I don't love them sonically. Like, I've heard songs that I love the studio versions. Just off the top of my head, Led Zeppelin comes to mind. some of their songs in the studio with John Paul Jones doing all of those instruments and the effects and everything. Robert Plant being able to do his vamp lines over top of his regular lines. And then they do it live, and John Paul Jones can only play one, maybe two instruments at a time, you know?
I think the whole live recording thing, Zeppelin is actually one where I really prefer the live versions, but generally, I think a lot of the live side is the visual now. And as soon as you take that away, it either makes it or breaks it. And it can go one of the two extremes.
Yeah, that's a good point too, actually. I mean, have you guys, I've seen some live video from you guys, but I haven't seen, maybe I just haven't looked in the right places. I haven't seen any video actually that you've made for one of your songs. Do you have videos?
No, we're in the process of getting some and building some, but yeah.
For the thing that's going to be released in later, or for the previously released songs?
For some of the singles off this EP.
Okay. We've been talking about the singles off the EP. We've been talking about the EP. How much do you want to let people know ahead of time, like titles of songs or how many songs, or I don't know.
The titles of the songs are out.
The titles of the songs are out. It's Last Dance, Drowning, and Trust Issues, which have been the last three singles, plus two extras. One's called Getaway. That was the one Jamie was talking about before, which was recorded a while ago and then re-recorded. And then one is a newer one called Madman.
Okay. Do you have anything from the new stuff that you'd like to put a little clip, like as a preview for people? Sneak peek number 1. So it sounds like you guys, you release them as singles first and then take that collection with a couple other songs, put that into the collection and release it in that way.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been doing that. Was that something that you thought of right from the beginning, or was that more like you felt your way through that and it seemed just to work?
I think it was that all 5 of the songs kind of felt like they belonged to the same collection. And then in terms of how we released them of 3 singles and 5-song EP, a lot of that was to play into the marketing side and kind of get the most traction out of the one project.
Yeah, well, I was talking to that group Seems Like Tuesday, and Steve said, just give people more bang for their buck, like, throw in a couple more songs so you feel like, okay, I feel like I'm satisfied the amount of music that I have here. And a lot of people have been, in the current market for music, to spend a year in the studio writing songs that nobody hears anything about, and then suddenly you throw all of that at people. There's a big fear that they'll listen to a couple of songs, they might love 1 or 2 songs, and then there might be, 7, 8 songs that don't really get traction, and you just invested the time and money and everything else of doing that, so sort of letting them out little by little, it keeps your name in people's minds, and I mentioned Zeppelin, like in the 70s, people would be in the studio for 2 years, and Stairway to Heaven was still playing on the radio when they released the next album. That just doesn't happen anymore. It's unlikely that a song is going to be, because of the way that we play it. We don't have radio per se anymore. We have internet radio and all this kind of stuff. But for songs to still be, let's say, on the radio in a year's time, not entirely likely. There might be some hits that make it, but otherwise it happens. It turns over a lot faster.
Yeah, well, the idea behind releasing the singles in the way we did was to hook people in so that when we release the bigger project, they actually kind of know us and care enough to be invested in it instead of just kind of slamming a whole EP in someone's face with no context, don't know us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense to me. I mean, I always compare pretty much everything to either music or food. And I think, it's like if nobody's ever tried any sort of spicy food, and then the first thing you do is give them like an entire plate of vindaloo, and it's just like blows their head off, which, if you've built up to that, it's awesome stuff, not to say that your stuff is like really hard to take in. It's very catchy, listenable, relatable music. I mean, just in terms of quantity,
Yeah.
So, I literally have 4 questions left for you.
Cool.
One of them is back to Rewrite Your Time, which you guys said was your first release together.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
How much of what we're hearing as the recording is the influence of the producer in the studio? Like, how much of a part of that is it for you guys?
None of it.
Yeah, none of it. We kind of done it ourselves, didn't we? We had Zach in, but we kind of just.
Zach is an amazing engineer and mixer. Probably one of the best in both the scene and UK as a whole. And he's great at engineering amazing sounding sonic things.
Mhm.
A lot of the
He liked the happens on.
a lot of kind of like the attitude and like emotion and mojo side of it comes from us as a whole. Like when we
You tell me what to say. That's not good. We'll do it again.
I don't believe you do it again.
that is a little bit.
Remember that time when I couldn't get that rhythm right? But like,
Oh, yeah, that was
I went to one of the sessions and I started tired and we wanted to change the rhythm for one of the lines and it just like took me like so many takes. Like it was getting embarrassing to be honest. Like they kicked me out of the band for a second.
Getaway.
Oh god. Yeah.
Another one. All right, then I'm going to do 4 more, and then we're going to do 8 more takes of the bridge.
Oh, and then I blew my voice out.
Yeah. But then a lot of the mojo and kind of attitude of it is from us directly. But Zach is an amazing engineer and mixer.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because a lot of times I've talked to people who it's their vision and they wrote the songs, but then when they go in with the producer, people knowing the gear and knowing sort of what they've done with other projects and stuff, we could do this thing here. And actually there's a group called the Michael Bate Band, and it's actually Michael Bate and his producer. That's the band.
Right. Yeah.
Because he's such an integral part of the way the songs come out, so that's why I asked you that. But it's really interesting that for you guys, it's very much your vision that you are able to translate into that.
Yeah, I think a lot of producers now as well, it's more about whether it serves the song or not, they're more interested in getting their fingerprint on it and saying it's identifiably them instead of what serves the song best. And that's where Zach is great as well, because he knows when to step back and let the song kind of exist.
Well, exactly. I mean, that first song, Rewrite the Time, that we released, we came into the studio and like we did everything our own way, and Zach was just the best at catering to the sounds that we wanted to hear. Like we did all of it live in the room with no click track for a start. So it's a nightmare from even setting up. But he was just, I mean, he did the best job he could have done. Really, anyone we know could have done at just taking us in a room and making it what it is now.
I mean, it's interesting that you're the one saying that, because one of the things on my scribbling notes of a crazy person. It was what mics are you using on those drums? Because the drum sound is just, it's not just like tight mic'd and that's it. It's got a really good breadth of sonic, I don't know, just like imagery, you know? It sounds
Yeah.
awesome. So do you know what he's using on there or how he's doing that?
I know that he used 421s on the toms,
So
57 on the snare.
57 on the snare. On the newer batch of stuff, he was using 414s on the toms. I think it was either NT5s or the Neumann pencil condensers for overheads. Sub-kick. Kick in, I think, was in Audix D2,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
And then stereo room mic was, do you know what
it was a pair.
It was like a U87 pair, but I don't think it was that.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah,
So-
it sounds fantastic. And I really do think in the studio, one of the things that I noticed with you guys that stood out all over the place was that sense that you don't have to fill all the sonic space all the time, you know, which I think that's why I had to re-ask that question. Like, Rewrite Your Time was your first release. Holy cow. Have you guys been playing around with studio, with recording before doing all this stuff?
I mean, me and you
We had demos.
but that was about as far as it was. Never, it was, I mean, the demos were literally just 2 condensers that we could get from the uni tech space and 2 dynamics, and that was the drum mic in.
Yeah.
So you weren't really thinking of in terms of like recording being one of the elements, like that being one of the elements of the sound. It was just literally to get it onto a recording so that you could say, okay, here's our song.
That's something we've always kind of done with demos, is use them as a platform for like working out arrangements and stuff, but we're not trying to make a releasable song.
Right. Yeah.
Just-
But I was really impressed by that. And I mean, and then some of the arranging stuff, like I was really curious about Changing World, you know? So I had to go back and find out what you were doing. So it starts off on a D, goes to A, B flat to a G, and then in the chorus it's B flat, A, G. Okay? Am I wrong?
B flat, A, E,
E minor?
E major.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
What you see is true destruction. See the landscapes that change and it's well. Is it true what they tell us? Are they feeding us the lies? You hate the truth. Hateful and vile and destructive. What you gonna do?
That song in particular was literally, we played it in a rehearsal room, and the length it took for us to play the song is the time it took for us to write it. It was, he started the beat, kind of the core harmonic stuff was there from that first playthrough, and then we demoed it up, tweaked a couple of arrangement bits. Some of my guitar bits were horrendously crap.
Yeah, he had this verse what sounded like
It sounded like Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus.
I just loved how it went to that B flat section. Like it plays the B flat in there, but then it goes back to it and it sort of plays around with it. No, it doesn't go to the G, it goes to the E. But I just loved how it played around that. But now you're telling me like the song that out of all of these that I wrote down, like sort of just the question about arranging turns out to be the one you just simply played it. That was it.
Harmonically, yes. In terms of parts, I think we arranged that for, oh God, when were we? Probably like 2-3 months. There were about, if I said there were 8 revisions, I would probably be lowballing it. But yeah, harmonically, it was there from that first time.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever listen to your songs and think, oh, that part sounds a little bit like this or that part sounds like that? You know, like another band, let's say, for example.
Occasionally, but it's
We're not going to say what bands.
yeah, we're not we can't afford a lawsuit, so we're not going to say that. But, yeah, we hear that more from other people.
Yeah.
Because if we're going into something going, we want it to sound like this band, it ends up being kind of cheesy and derivative.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean it like that at all. I didn't mean like you went into the writing or the arranging of it. I just mean like after it's done and you've done what felt sincerely like what you wanted, right? I meant after all of that. Because I know sometimes I've had a song that I wrote or that my band wrote, whatever. And then later on we go, oof, that chorus really does sound a little bit like this other song. Like we didn't think that at all. We weren't planning for that. It wasn't the intention, but just at the moment you go, oh, that chord change. It's exactly what they do in this other song. That's all I meant,
Yeah, we've had that with some, but
Yeah, there's a song coming out which has the exact same chord sequence as another song in the chorus and the same kind of melody shape, which we didn't realize when we wrote it.
Mhm.
And to be fair, when we were writing it, none of us had heard that
No,
song.
none of us knew that song either.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had some people telling us that Drowning sounded like Tool.
I couldn't hear it all.
That
Which
was weird.
none of us can really work out.
I posted a video of it that was like 7 seconds long of just the intro, and every comment was like, "Oh, that sounds like cool. That sounds like new."
That's always going to happen anyway. I've had people. I wrote a song. It was like this heartfelt ballad and yada yada blah blah blah. And I wrote this song and I thought that's really nice. That's all I thought. I just thought it sounds really nice, and I took it to the band that I was in, and they said that is like exactly like a Van Morrison song. I don't know which song it is, but that's Van Morrison. And I was like, I mean, a huge compliment in the sense that if I could write a song that sounds like Van Morrison, great. But that was not in my brain at all. I wasn't thinking that for a second. Paul McCartney of all people, he's talked about that. He's written songs that people say, "Oh, that sounds like that song sounds like this song," and he's like, especially at this point in his life, he's written a billion songs that are some of the most famous songs in the world.
And also, there's only a specific set of human emotions that can influence your songwriting process. And if you're in the same headspace as Van Morrison, for example, it's kind of guaranteed it's going to sound like that.
That's a really good point. People always, I thought where you're going to go with that statement is that people always go to the number of possible chords and notes that we have. Like there are 12 notes, right? Like in modern Western music, whatever, like unless you go into microtonal stuff and all of that extra cool stuff, but basically we're using A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and sharps in between. That's it. And then we have major, minor, and you can go for some augmenteds if you want to, like it's a finite number of musical choices, but that's not what you said there. You said there's a finite number of emotions that will influence our choices.
I think it's the same thing with, you can listen to a cover version of a song and prefer it to the original because it feels like on some level they meant it more than the original singer or original version did. And I think that's the main thing that people latch onto with music. It's not, unless you're listening to specifically classical or jazz, maybe, you're not listening to something going, I'm listening to this because I like the function of this chord going to this chord. It's the emotion it captures and gives to you as a listener.
Yeah, I think I do that with lots of different types of music, but it's even for classical, I don't listen to Mozart because I'm looking for an A minor chord. It's not the chords that are impressive, it's how it makes you feel, right? And the sincerity of the moment, like what you just said, is you can have a cover that people feel is better than the original because those people, maybe did actually mean it more. You know, like I can think of a number of songs. I actually posted that on Facebook one time, like what's a cover that you think is better than the original? And it's possible that the whoever put out the original, they put it out because they had written that song and the record company at that point in time said, this is going to be a huge hit. Let's put it out. So they went, okay. So they put it out. But somebody, a number of years, like they've grown up listening to that song now and it really connects with them. So when they put it out, it's 100% sincere. And it's the sincerity that we pick up on.
Yeah. And you even see that with artists revisiting their old catalogue, like Joni Mitchell, which she's done 3 different versions, once when she was like 22, once when she was, let's say, 40s, and then one recently. And it's, even though it's the same song, it feels like 3 different songs.
I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions. I recall, I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way that you feel has every...
If it wasn't like, will you still respect me in the morning? It was like, are you, still going to give me my fair share of this relationship kind of thing, I mentioned it briefly before, but I didn't ask you about harmonies, because to my ear, I heard that like Alice in Chains, Jerry Cantrell type of style of harmonies. Just that. I don't think, again, I want to be really clear. I'm not making these comparisons to take away anything that you did. I really think what you do is cool and it's very original. I just know that everything that we do, as original as it can be, comes from somewhere. Yeah. Nothing is 100% new under the sun. So I just wanted to clarify. I don't want you guys to walk away going, God, it's just hearing different bands. That's
Don't worry.
That's not what I mean.
I kind of hear that anyway with that song, so I kind of get what you mean. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The amount of times we have like sang what song is it?
Them
Bones like really badly trying to do the harmonies together. Yeah.
I think it sounded great, and I think part of it is like you weren't trying to sound like Alice in Chains. So what I love about it is it's like a slightly different take on that same style, which I think is really cool. I think that sounded great, actually. That song, like as a musician, I think that one stuck in my head a lot. I really liked what you did on the guitar with the chromatic thing. The drums were, I think, incredibly well arranged and balanced. I have to admit to you, I'm not typically a huge fan of pick on the bass, but I do. Sorry, but it's true. But I know, give him a hug over there.
I'm probably quite 50-50 with it, to be honest. Whether I play with pick or fingers, I think just joining the band, having a lot of the songs sort of mostly arranged by the time I got in, pick just seemed to make a bit more sense for most of the songs.
Well, that's one of the things that I've learned over the years. Like, I think if you had asked a 20-something me, I would have said, never use a pick on the bass. Like a mortal sin. And now I realize, no, it's you use the term that I use all the time, which is serve the song. If that's what makes sense for the song, then absolutely use the pick, right? And I think it really does fit well. It really helps to drive that rhythm and that energy of the songs. And that's actually where I was going with this, and especially in that song. I thought the bass, I thought the whole thing fit really well together. And then you put those harmonies in there, and I was like, okay, listen number 2 now. I had to go back and listen to that one. It was
actually him doing the harmony. By the way, and then Jamie does it in the last chorus as well. I'm not doing the harmonies on that one.
Yeah.
I think I tried. I might
No, I did it.
Oh, did you do it? Yeah.
Because you did something, and I was like, oh, actually, I like that. And I just did it.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you all sing on at least some of it.
Somewhat, yeah.
One line.
It's just that song. The rest of the songs is just me, right?
Yeah.
I've got that.
I did.
I scream my brains out.
Oh yeah, we do that.
Got words.
There's enough to tell. Everybody's differences lie in the water. Dignity is it gonna show their true
Yeah, I mean, who knows? We'll see how that develops over time. If all of you are willing to sing and, you know, you find places where it fits, because if your go-to is serve the song, then that decision makes itself. And if you are able to do it, then that's what happens.
Yeah.
It was trust issues. You've already answered this question, but I'm just going to point it out so that people, when they listen to this song, hopefully will hear this more clearly. I think it's in verse 2. You double the guitar with like a higher octave melody.
There's a lot of guitars on that one. There's some synths in there as well. So it might be a blend of the two. But yeah, the development of keeping that melody from verse 1 with the kind of driving feel.
Okay. And all of that as well, that was like, as you were going through the song, you thought, okay, that melody needs to come back. How are we going to do that? Like,
I think it was more texturally, what does the song need at this point? Because the core melodies were there regardless. It was just giving it momentum, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my opinion, verse 1 rolls and verse 2 drives.
oh, that's
It's
interesting.
basically-
Yeah, actually, that does make sense. You know, like, because you know, you have to lead people through the story a little bit. You know, you're telling this story, but at the same time, if you were, let's say, reading a book and you were reading monotone the whole time, you would very quickly stop listening, you know?
Yeah.
So that makes total sense. You're, again, aware of that ebb and flow of the song. I just thought it was neat how, and you're right, I mentioned about 3 or 4 different guitar sounds in here. There was I wrote, I don't remember which section this was, but at some point I wrote Cure type guitar, like the Cure, the band.
Yeah.
There was.
Thank you.
I don't remember why I wrote that, and I wrote killer drum drive with triplets. Overall, guys, I just I'm so glad I've been listening to your music. I really enjoy what you guys are doing, and to be honest, from my perspective, you guys are really young, and to have such a mature sound less than 2 years in is pretty awesome. So, like, what I see is huge potential already. Like, you guys sound awesome. So I don't mean to say like that's good, but you can do better. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, it sounds awesome, and it's going to be really interesting to see in what ways that evolves and grows over time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
And thank you so much for having us on. It's really nice to speak to someone who understands the musical side of it as well. And your questions are great. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. That actually is always the last question that I ask. I always ask, is there a question that you wish I had asked, but I didn't ask?
I think so.
I can't think of one. So
wow, that's good. Because one of the things I'm going to show in here is some of your upcoming shows. Are you guys playing tomorrow?
No, we're playing Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Oh.
yeah. EP release gig 16th of October at EBGB's with Interail, Stageminus, and Arcadia Ego, who are good friends, local bands. And then the EP comes out on the 17th.
Sneak peek number 2.
Running through the last what you call disaster strikes you at the wrong time. You lost your
That's awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I would love to talk to you guys again at some point in the future after you've put out the new music, and we can revisit where you are at that point.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Okay.
Thank
you, guys. All right. Talk to you later.
Cheers. Bye.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night.